They were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself.
In the history of sports, I give total pass to saying I'm the greatest, and that's where GOAT comes from, Muhammad Ali.
In the world of basketball, greatness is often debated but rarely declared by the legends themselves. That's why the conversation today is sparking fire across the NBA world. When LeBron James publicly called himself the GOAT, it was more than just confidence. It was a statement that disrupted decades of humble silence from basketball's most revered icons. Today on NBA Showdown, we break down why that one move may have created a divide between LeBron and the legends that came before him. Stephen A. Smith and Michael Wilbon are not holding back, and neither are we. If you love deep dives into NBA legacy, truth bombs from the legends, and passionate basketball commentary, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a beat. Now let's jump right into the first section. Stephen A. Smith opens the floodgates with a simple but loaded statement. When people talk about LeBron James, there is only one other player from the past who stands in a tier above him, and that is Michael Jordan. That right there is significant because when you are only being compared to one other player in history, it means your legacy is already etched in greatness. Yet for Stephen A., it's not about the talent, the accolades, or the stats. It's about how that greatness is presented. And in LeBron's case, the presentation has become problematic. Jordan, often praised as the greatest by fans, peers, and analysts alike, never once claimed it for himself. He let the game speak. He let history, dominance, and championship banners carry the argument. LeBron, however, flipped that script. Despite being compared to Jordan, he did not allow the world to crown him. He reached out and placed the crown on his own head. That's where things start to break apart, because in a sport that reveres humility and lets the legends rise through legacy, LeBron made a move that many see as out of place. And this is where the problem begins, not with his greatness, but with how that greatness is broadcasted. In a way, by declaring himself the GOAT, LeBron skipped the line of recognition and tried to end the debate himself. But you can't do that in basketball. You don't declare yourself a legend, you earn it quietly and let others tell the story.
LeBron James, there's only one player we look at and we say definitively we think was better. And that was Michael Jordan.
Stephen A. Smith delivers the most striking observation yet. In the history of the NBA, players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, and Tim Duncan, all players whose legacies are cemented, not one of them ever called themselves the greatest of all time. That detail may seem small, but in the arena of greatness, humility is everything. These legends allowed their careers to speak for them. They respected the game and let fans, teammates, analysts, and historians build their cases. LeBron, according to Stephen A., broke that unspoken rule, and it wasn't just LeBron. Stephen points to the fact that his camp, the people around him, pushed the narrative as well. It became a branding movement, a marketing push, a campaign. But greatness, true greatness, doesn't need promotion. It needs proof. And that proof already exists for LeBron. He is one of the most dominant athletes we have ever seen. He's broken records, redefined longevity, and changed the way the NBA operates. But declaring himself the GOAT changes the conversation from admiration to contention. That's why Stephen A. sees this as a red flag. It's not just that LeBron said it, it's that none of the other legends ever did. When you consider the stature of a player like Kareem, who scored more points than anyone for decades, or Bill Russell, who won 11 championships, the silence becomes deafening. They had every right to declare themselves number one, but they didn't. Why? Because they respected the debate, because they understood that calling yourself the GOAT is not just about belief, it's about perception, legacy, and decorum. LeBron broke from that tradition, and the backlash is real.
They were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him.
Stephen A. does not stop with the legends of the past. He brings in current icons like Steph Curry and Ray Allen to show just how deeply this humility runs in NBA culture. Take Steph Curry, widely regarded as the greatest shooter in NBA history. Everyone says it. Coaches, players, fans, even his competitors. But Steph has never once stood up and declared it himself. That's not his style, that's not the culture. Instead, he lets his game, his records, and his impact on the league do the talking. Ray Allen, another legendary shooter, follows that same line. He never called himself the greatest, and yet his legacy is untouchable. This is the mindset that defines the upper echelon of basketball greatness. It is not about being loud. It is not about public declarations. It is about letting time and performance carve your name into the granite of basketball history. That's why LeBron's self-proclamation continues to rub so many people the wrong way. It's not about doubting his ability or accomplishments. LeBron is great, one of the greatest to ever step on the court. But by speaking the words aloud, by taking ownership of the GOAT title without letting others anoint him, he crossed a line that most legends never even approached. And this is not just a generational shift. It is a cultural one. It challenges the DNA of the sport. A sport built on respect, reverence, and the idea that the game itself determines who rises above the rest. So when Stephen A. points out this contrast, he is not attacking LeBron's resume. He is pointing out how the path to legacy was taken differently, and sometimes how you walk the path matters just as much as reaching the destination.
Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Ray Allen never called himself the greatest shooter of all time.
Michael Wilbon adds his voice to the conversation, and it's clear his perspective carries weight. Wilbon is not just another media figure. He's someone who has spoken directly to both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And what he shares reinforces everything Stephen A. laid out. According to Wilbon, neither Jordan nor Kobe ever called themselves the greatest. Not in private conversations, not in interviews, not in casual chats. Instead, they spoke about other players, they uplifted their peers, they focused on competition, not comparison. That insight matters, because it tells us something about the mindset of those two fierce competitors. They did not need validation from the world. They found purpose in the process, in the challenge, in constantly pushing themselves. And more importantly, they understood how humility adds to greatness. Wilbon's experience confirms that this was a conscious choice, not just media spin. And it draws a sharp contrast to LeBron's self-appointed title. What makes Wilbon's observation even more compelling is that it is rooted in personal connection. He was there. He heard it. He knows how the legend spoke behind closed doors. And when he says LeBron is the only one who crossed that line, it forces us to ask why. Why did LeBron feel the need to say it? Why did he need to stamp the conversation with his own voice? Was it insecurity? Was it branding? Was it frustration from always being second in the public eye? Whatever the reason, Wilbon believes there is only one person who ever got a pass for calling themselves the GOAT, and that was Muhammad Ali. And Ali, unlike LeBron, was not just a sports figure. He was a political voice, a symbol of resistance, a cultural titan. That's a different conversation altogether.
The men you've mentioned, none of them say, I was the greatest. I was the greatest. I had these conversations with Kobe Bryant and Michael and Magic, and they always would say, wait a minute.
So did I.
They point to other guys.
Stephen A. Smith takes us deeper into the psychology behind the debate. He points out something that is often overlooked. LeBron James chose to wear number 23. That number is not just a jersey. It is a legacy, a symbol, a crown worn by Michael Jordan himself. From the very beginning of his NBA journey, LeBron embraced the weight of expectation that came with that choice. He didn't shy away from the comparison. He accepted them. But that decision, Stephen A. argues, was more than symbolic. It became a commitment, a promise that he would one day take that mantle. The problem is, you don't get to decide when or if you ever do. Legacy in the NBA is shaped by 1,000 games, 10,000 moments, and 1,000,000 debates. Jordan never once said he was the greatest, and yet the world believes he is. Kobe let his game speak louder than words. Kareem dominated for decades and let history judge him. These players never sought to replace one another, they simply wanted to be the best version of themselves. LeBron, by contrast, put himself in direct competition with the GOAT label from day one. And that is not the problem. The issue, as Steven sees it, is that LeBron tried to end the conversation too soon. When he called himself the greatest, he didn't just insert himself into the debate, he tried to end it. And that's where the resistance began. By wearing the number 23, LeBron made a bold statement. But greatness, especially the kind that transcends generations, isn't something you can declare. It has to be earned. over time, through battles, through defeats, through championships, through character. The weight of number 23 is not just performance, it's perception. And Stephen A. believes that LeBron, for all his brilliance, misunderstood how fragile and sacred that perception really is. One of the most jarring critiques Stephen A. lays out is that LeBron had every opportunity to learn from the greats, but may have missed the moment. Early in his career, LeBron was handed the spotlight. He was the chosen one. The media loved him, the fans adored him, and the league opened its doors for him to walk through as the next big thing. But somewhere along the way, Stephen says, LeBron started believing in his own hype a little too much. When you proclaim yourself the GOAT, you're not just declaring your skills, you're dismissing the era before you. That's the issue. Not everyone is ready to let go of the legends. Because those legends carried themselves in a certain way, they didn't flaunt, they didn't self-proclaim, they let others do the talking. The fact that LeBron and his inner circle tried to lead the campaign for his GOAT status rubs traditionalists the wrong way, becomes a conversation not about legacy, but about ego. What makes this even more uncomfortable is that LeBron didn't need to say it. His numbers, his accolades, his longevity, they speak for themselves. But by inserting his own voice into the conversation, it gave critics a target. And instead of celebrating his greatness, they started dissecting it. Not because he isn't deserving, but because humility matters in this game, especially when you are discussing the pantheon of all-time legends. Stephen's point is that LeBron could have let history do the work. He could have walked away from the game and allowed the debates to flourish. Instead, he tried to write his own conclusion, and in doing so, sparked controversy that never needed to exist. For all his dominance on the court, off the court, he made one crucial mistake. He did not follow the blueprint set by those before him. And when you are vying for the title of greatest of all time, every detail matters.
Reggie Miller never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Allen Houston never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Nobody called themselves the greatest in anything but that man and his camp.
Michael Wilbon closes the argument with a point that strikes at the heart of the matter. There is only one man in all of sports who ever called himself the greatest and got away with it, Muhammad Ali. And that's because Ali wasn't just an athlete. He was a movement. He stood for civil rights. He opposed war. He fought not only in the ring, but in the court of public opinion and culture. Ali's declaration of being the greatest wasn't just bravado, it was resistance, it was empowerment, and it was a cultural weapon. That's why the world let it slide. It wasn't just about boxing, it was about everything else. LeBron James is not Muhammad Ali. As incredible as he is on the court and as philanthropic as he is off of it, his proclamation didn't carry the same cultural depth. His statement wasn't a revolution, it was a branding moment. That distinction matters, because when you step into the space Ali once owned, you better come with more than just stats. You better come with a movement, a cause, a reason that transcends sport. Wilbon argues that Kobe, Jordan, and even Kareem understood this unspoken rule. They respected the silence. They knew that letting the people speak for you held more weight than speaking for yourself. That's the difference. That's the invisible line LeBron crossed. And even though he may have thought he was elevating himself, he may have accidentally diminished the legacy he worked so hard to build. When we look at all the legends who stayed quiet about their place in history and contrast it with LeBron's vocal declaration, it forces us to reflect on what greatness really means. Is it about being the best? Or is it about how you carry that greatness? For Wilbon and Stephen A., the answer is clear. LeBron didn't need to say it. And because he did, it forever changed the tone of the conversation around him.
In the history of sports, I give total pass to saying I'm the greatest, and that's where GOAT comes from, Muhammad Ali.
So where do we land in this conversation? LeBron James is undeniably one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball. His impact on the court, his leadership, his longevity, they are unmatched in modern basketball. But when he called himself the GOAT, he created a divide between himself and the legends he so desperately wanted to join. Not because he isn't good enough, but because in the world of true greatness, humility is the final bag. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Tim Duncan, Steph Curry, none of them ever called themselves the greatest. They didn't need to. The world did it for them. LeBron tried to skip that step. And in doing so, he created a conversation that still divides fans today. If you agree, disagree, or fall somewhere in the middle, let us know in the comments. Was LeBron right to call himself the GOAT, or did he step over a line that should never be crossed? This has been another deep dive from NBA Showdown. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay loud, stay loyal, and stay legendary.